Come the next stimulus, we're going to be banking on the generosity of Taco Bell, I guess.
I mean, it could not be less funny, and the reality is that probably is true. I suspect that the management at Taco Bell is probably much more inclined to take care of their employees than Nancy Pelosi is.
Yes. Well, Domino's just went left of and did more than Congress for thousands of people. Domino's is left of the Congress. Ha! Domino's is. Second stimulus checks may be on the way. Here's what advisors say you should do with the money. This is from CNBC. This is for real. A second stimulus check could be sent to Americans if Congress' latest negotiations are successful. The reported sum of $600 per individual may not sound like much, but can have lasting effects if used wisely. Start by whittling down high-interest debts and bulking up your emergency and retirement savings. That's what you're supposed to do right now. You're supposed to whittle down your debt, and you're supposed to save for retirement right now with that $600. That's from CNBC. Come on, I couldn't even write a parody that's beyond parody, Dylan. Now, you're a money guy. What the fuck are they doing over there?
I mean, that to me looks like a mind that they would write that. That's basically an auto report from a robot that at a place like CNBC. I could, I have some money. What should you do with it? Oh, pay down high interest debt and save for retirement. As if, again, the thing that has got me so sort of profoundly disturbed, and I would say, that I am profoundly disturbed, is the refusal to acknowledge, for all the talk, oh, it's a pandemic, oh, wear a mask, oh, we need a vaccine. There's all this sort of theatrics about the fact that, oh, we're in a pandemic. Well, if we are in a pandemic, which apparently we are, and you're going to shut down all of the small businesses, and you're going to shut down all of the hotels, and you're going to shut down all of the cruise lines, and all those jobs at Disneyland and Disney World and on and on and on, all those hospitality jobs, all of those travel jobs, all of the gyms, all of the hair salons, all of the restaurants, is it the bar owner's fault that they have a bar? Is the bar owner was there an error in judgment on the bar owner's part to have a bar that they made a bad choice where Jeff Bezos made a good choice because he was in digital? And so the refusal of the media to deal from reality, which is, again, and this is very confusing because there's a very, very, very specific and very large, but it's a very specific segment of the American population, 20%, 30%, it's not a small amount, but it's a specific segment that has been, as a matter of policy, destroyed economically by this situation. Not their fault. Not their fault. To refuse to acknowledge the trauma, the economic and social trauma that has been caused by this pandemic, and instead walk around being like, oh, aren't we grown-ups? Well, we cut a deal. Hey, we compromised. Make sure you pay down the high-interest debt. It goes to show, I guess we all know what it shows, but it goes to show the level of disconnection between the totality of the media and political class. But again, you don't have to be, I'm disconnected, okay? I'm disconnected.
You mean from
I'm intelligent, but I'm intelligent. You know what, Jimmy? You're disconnected. But you and I and it does not take any level of awareness or education to understand the level of catastrophe for a very specific but very large portion of the American population that is being destroyed as a matter. So at this point, the destruction of small business and the categories that I've discussed is now being advanced as a matter of conscious policy by the United States government.
Yes. So when
this is not we're caught back on our heels. We don't know what to do. My goodness, there's a new virus. Oh my God, it's February, it's March. We've never been in this situation before. I can forgive. You can forgive people a lot of sins. No one's ever had to face anything of this size. It's now been a year since the virus has been around, and 9 months since it's been around the United States in a meaningful way. Everybody's had plenty of time to observe, study, understand, and collect data on the impact of this. And this is the piece of legislation that they come out with. They had $2 trillion on the table before the election, and then Nancy Pelosi negotiates her way to 900, and I'm glad the PPP loans are there. Again, I'm glad that there's a little bit of an opportunity for judges to cram down mortgage debt on default. I'm glad that there's some forbearance where utilities can't shut off the power or the heat this winter for those who can't pay. There's a small number of things that, thank God, they are in this piece of legislation. But clearing the base hurdle of, thank God you didn't do everything wrong, is not a solution. It is, again, the adjectives are infinite, but I'm going to go with if the last time we spoke, I said it was a dereliction of duty. At this point, the dereliction of duty is no longer rhetorical or this is now, I'm profoundly disturbed by the United States government's policy to actively destroy 1/3 of the economy and the American people who depend upon it. I'm profoundly disturbed tonight by this fact. This is not an accident. This is not an inability to understand. This is a year in the making after a presidential election. I'm profoundly disturbed by the open and objective policy by the United States government to explicitly destroy a specific segment of our economy and a specific segment of our population due to no fault of their own, literally zero fault of their own, while simultaneously providing trillions in wealth and support to a different segment of the economy, whether it's the financial sector, whether it's the digital sector. So finance and digital has benefited parabolic, 100 times what it would have ever had. So basically you've taken one group and taken them from 1 to 100, and then you've taken another group from 100 to 0. As a matter of policy, Jimmy, this is now, so as sure as, France has a policy, United Kingdom has a policy, China has a policy, everybody has policies. They sit in meetings, they spend months in meetings, they collect data, they get spreadsheets, they have debates, they talk to people, they run analytics, and at the conclusion of all the analysis and all the data collection and all the debate and all the drafting, the United States of America has accepted and is now advancing a policy intended to destroy 1/3 of the economy.
And so when they did this with the CARES Act, we tried to warn everybody that this was coming, that this is what they're doing. And people were still the next day. I mean, I saw still people have never reported the CARES Act correctly except at this show. I know that sounds crazy, but I've seen the best I get out of other people with the CARES Act is it was a bad vote. That's what they'll say. It was a bad vote. No, that was the undoing of America. You saw the undoing of America in the CARES Act, and the progressives all voted for it and then lied about what was in it afterwards and what they did. And so, and now everybody agrees AOC did.
We're at $2 trillion. Sorry to interrupt you, but we were at $2 trillion a month ago, Jimmy.
Yeah.
I don't have to go back that far.
We were
at $2 trillion 1 month ago.
And the only person The only progressive in the entire fucking Congress, I mean the House or the Senate, the only person who would pressure Nancy Pelosi to pass that stimulus, that $2 trillion, was Ro Khanna. No one else told her to do it. Not Rashid Tlaib, not Ilhan Omar, not Ayanna Pressley, not AOC, not Bernie Sanders. Not Mark Pocan. Nobody.
I would rather work with the idea that these people have created celebrity identities. These so-called progressive politicians have created celebrity identities for themselves as a self-perpetuating economy that is as disconnected from policy as anything else.
They're not even strategizing. They're not even trying to use... There's a 5-vote difference between the Democrats and Republicans. The progressives have all the leverage. They can demand whatever they wanted. And guess what? They're not demanding anything. Nothing. They're not demanding anything. In fact, they said that AOC said we can't negotiate for a Medicare for All vote because we're negotiating behind the scenes for committee spots. She just got kicked off for committee. That's what you were. So now you're not negotiating for anything. So you might as well do this hashtag force the vote. But again, she'll just come up with another bullshit excuse. Cenk Uygur will second it, and then it will create enough muddy the waters, and maybe people like AOC and Cenk can slow this train down so we don't get health care. That might happen.
At least the Republicans advanced the PPP. Like at least the Republicans advanced
the PPP. And
which again, I know that thing gets abused, and I know there's the headlines and this one and that one, and I'm sure those are all true. But at the end of the day, that is a good policy that supports income and supports jobs, even if it's inefficient and even if it is abused. But it is still that's a good thing. You want to have it.
Yes.
Okay. We all want to have it. That's not a left-right issue.
So let me go ahead. Can I just finish this article?
I'm just going to repeat myself.
Let me just finish this article because this is kind of stunning. This is from that CNBC article I was showing you before. If you're jobless, you should obviously pay for one of 3 things: either shelter, food, or medication. Winnie Sun, the co-founder and managing director of Sun Group Wealth Partners in Irvine, California, said of the stimulus checks. If you're lucky enough not to be in that situation, then you can put that money to work to help you in the future. You could do a lot more. It's not just $600, she said. It has the potential to be larger later on. So this article, here, there's a little bit more to it. Other research from Invest Yodlee indicates that some stimulus check recipients had more recreational uses for the money, depending on income. That included travel, electronics, and even security trades, in addition to more practical uses. Rather than buying individual stocks, it would be preferable to instead focus on your retirement savings or your children's college savings, she said. That's definitely a smart way to use that money. This article, it should be just called Really Rich People Attempt to Communicate with the Poors. That is a stunning article right now. That is just stunning. And here's Juma Baraka says, Democrats failed working class people with the games they played leading up to the elections that resulted in no agreement on support for the people. They compounded that with this pathetic piece of legislation with this insulting a $600 check. Pat DeBurner says, we were given a pathetic $1,200 survival check at the start of this pandemic, and now that 300,000 people have died and 14 million have lost their employer health care, 9 months later, we're only worth $600? Burn it down. So if there was 100,000 people breaking through the gates of the White House right now, you'd be getting a check. If there was 100,000 people breaking through the gates of the Congress, you'd be getting a check. If there was 100,000 people at Nancy Pelosi's house, you'd be getting a check. So that's how we're going to get this. You have to get in the streets and you have to make people who are in government afraid for their safety. That's what, if you look in that book, there's that famous story that Henry Kissinger and Nixon, they're protesting outside the White House, and they had put up school buses behind the gates in case they broke through. And Nixon turns to Henry Kissinger and he says, Henry, I'm afraid if they break through, they'll come for us. And Chris Hedges says, that's exactly where you want them to be. And because that's what they're doing to us. They're literally killing people right now. The government is killing people. Do you know how much poverty they're creating, which creates death? It creates drug use, crime, suicides, depression, and illness. It creates death. What they're doing is creating more death than this virus is creating. That's what they're going to do right now. Way more pain and suffering is coming from their reaction to this virus, not from the virus. Would you agree with that, Dylan?
But it's not even a question. I mean, there's not even a question. Again, a broken down car is one thing. A marauding gang that attacks you in the car after it breaks down is much more problematic than having a broken down car.
And before I let you go, what do you make of these people who are bending over backwards and turning themselves into a pretzel to oppose #Force the Vote? What do you make of those people? I mean, I know you know a lot of them.
So you remember how Nancy Pelosi did not want to allow a direct payment before the election because she didn't want Donald Trump to get credit for it?
Yeah.
Even though it would have been very useful.
Right.
I believe the situation right now is because you're the sort of character, as you know, who is either very attractive and enjoyable or extremely offensive and disturbing. And because you elevated this idea, although you're certainly not the only person by far advocating this idea at this point, but because you are the initial human being with a profile, with a platform to elevate this idea, and because of the mentality of the political universe, so in the spectrum of the universe, few places have a lower state of consciousness and a lower vibration than politics in general. It's a very primal, very fear-based, very manipulative, very reactive place. And it really reveals itself in a situation like this where I'm not going to give you money because I don't like Donald Trump. I don't want you to have health care because Jimmy Dore was the one who had the idea and I don't like Jimmy Dore. And these are tragic revelations about the state of consciousness of people. And I have great hope and sympathy for them, that I hope that they can see beyond the very low state of consciousness that they're operating at and actually elevate to force the government to create an opportunity for health care and support for the American people in the middle of this evolving and expanding tragedy.
So you're saying that people who have other platforms who could be advocating for this and who aren't are doing that because it's not their idea. They're that small people.
I'm not gonna. I believe that I'm not gonna speak to any particular individual. I'm just not gonna do that. But I'll tell you for sure, there are people who don't like you, and as a result, don't like this idea.
That's right.
Which is idiotic. Cornel West likes the idea. Do you like? How do you feel? I think that when you first sort of presented this idea, which the reason this idea has traction, by the way, is not because your platform is so big or because you're such a persuasive presenter, although you have a very big platform and you're a very persuasive presenter, but it's because it's a good idea, right? You've said a lot of things over your life in public on this platform in a persuasive and engaging way, and nothing came of it. No one cared. The reason this idea of using as much leverage as possible wherever the leverage is available to force this single issue, the reason it has so much momentum, the reason it has so much energy, is because you are right, not because you are. It's literally that simple. But it's not that you are right. You are a messenger for an idea that is right. It's not that Jimmy is correct. It's that using leverage to force healthcare in a pandemic is correct. And you, to your credit, used your platform to advance the idea, and it obviously caught fire because it's a good idea.
People are just making up bogus reasons why it can't work, why it shouldn't work, and why we need to wait a little longer. Remember, the Democrats lose control of the Congress in 2022. It's all over, right? And then we get a worse Trump in 2024. So this is literally the only time we can do this, right now. And so anybody out there telling you to wait, this isn't the right time, this isn't the right strategy, those people are on the take, they're gaslighting you, and they're trying to block you from getting health care because they're millionaires who already have it. Nobody who doesn't have health care is saying that. Nobody is saying that. There are people so bent against me that 90% of their audience is for this, and they're still finding bullshit reasons to be against it. That is disgusting. Disgusting. 90% of the Young Turks audience is for this. They see right through Jake Uger's gaslighting. And yet every day now he's coming out with another bullshit reason why we can't do this. Shame on him. Shame on him. While he sends emails to poor people asking for fucking money in the middle of a depression. 3 times a week like it's coming from his cell phone. Shame on those people. Dylan, thank you very much. Thank you for coming on and having the information and framing it correctly. I really appreciate it. Remember, I'm going to say, the reason I'm profoundly disturbed is because the U.S. government has now had time to contemplate and analyze and has decided to advance a policy in favor of destroying a third of the American people. That's their policy. Their policy is to shut down at least a third of our economy. That's their policy. And where does that economy go? It goes to Amazon. That's where it goes. It goes to Best Buy. It goes to Target. It goes to Walmart. That's where it goes, right? Because I can't go to my sporting goods store on the corner where there's 5 people in it and buy a baseball mitt for my nephew for Christmas, but I can go to Amazon and buy a baseball mitt. Why is that? There's 1,000 people inside one of those fulfillment centers. There's 5 people inside of my local sporting goods store. Why is 1,000 people inside of a fulfillment center okay, but 5 people inside of my sporting goods store not okay? Why is this okay to inflict this kind of damage on people without helping? Why is people with big platforms afraid to use leverage right now in the most desperate situation people have ever been in? It's because those people are millionaires and they don't care. Dylan, thank you very much. Thanks for coming on.
We'll talk.
All right, go to